Live.
Good night to the Belizean people at home and abroad. Tonight we bring you the 65th edition of Belizean Affairs. Sitting with me virtually tonight as my virtual host is Mr. Roody as well as Mr. Leonard Brackett. As usual, we start our program with the reading of a scripture followed by a prayer. With that said, I will go straight to Mr. Wade, followed by Mr. Brackett for the reading and the prayer. And tonight, I am the chairman of the show, Mr. Gregory Brackett. Mr. Wade,
Thank you, Greg. It's always a pleasure to be in your all company. As we bring to the nation again, truth, and again we are about people and nation. Um, I will I go straight to the reading from Proverbs chapter 24, 17 to 21. Says, "Do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and let not your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord see it and be displeased, and turn away his anger from him. Fret not yourself because of evildoers, and be not envious of the wicked, for the evil man has no future. The lamp of will be put out. My son, fear the Lord and the king, and do not join with those who do otherwise. For disaster will arise suddenly from them, and who knows the ruin that will come from them both. These also are slain of the wise. Partiality in judgment is not good. Whoever says to the wicked, "You are right," you are in the right, will be cursed by people abhorred by nations. But those who rebuke the wicked will have delight, and a good blessing will come upon them. Whoever gives an honest answer kisses the lips. Prepare your work outside. Get everything ready for yourself in the field. And that build after that build your house. Be not a witness against your neighbor without cause, and do not deceive with your lips. That's my reading for tonight.
thank you for your reading, Mr. Wade. Go ahead, Mr. Brackett.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Uh, Divine loving Father, we come before thy presence again, asking that thou must accept our humble expression of gratitude and thankfulness to thee for having given us life in the first instance, and secondly, for giving us the opportunity to still be among still be alive among our family members, friends, and loved ones. We pray that thou must bless our family, friends, and loved ones wherever they are. Thou knowest them by name and number. We pray that thou must bless our country of Belize, its people, and its leadership. We also pray that thou must bless this country of the United States, its people, and its leadership, and the rest of humanity, and especially that thou would have mercy upon those people who are in harm's way, who are being hurt for no justifiable reason. Please continue to be merciful unto us and continue to guard and bless and protect us. We pray for Christ's sake. Amen.
Man.
time I walk through the streets, I feel so blessed, so good and so free. And every time my foot touch the beach, I feel so at peace, thanking God for my country. And I don't know how it make you feel when the breeze such a fracas just start to chew up, but I'm kinda living in a fantasy. It's the only place that I wanna be. My Belize, my home, land by the sea, beautiful with the trees and valleys, culture rich with a one big family, all the way from the mountains to the keys. Your vacation dream is home to me. Belize. Make I tell a little bit about my history. Home Belize was a British crown colony. By September 1981, we take back we country in a we hands. And every time I think about Belize, I feel so blessed, so good and so free. Place full of a diversity, we Creole got the culture as la vie. And I don't know how it make you feel when the drums start not make you want to dig it up, but I'm kinda living in a fantasy. It's the only place that I wanna be. My Belize, my home, land by the sea, beautiful with the trees and valleys, culture rich with a one big family, all the way from the mountains to the keys. Your vacation dream is home to me. Belize, my Belize, Belize.
Volume, Greg.
Again, good night to the people at home and abroad. Gentlemen, sitting with me virtually. On more than one occasion on these platforms, we have spoke to the people at home and abroad about constitution reform. We have tried to enlighten them on how the Belizean constitution should be run. We have told them about the basic structure. We have enlightened them about their fundamental rights and Section 20, which is there to help them with judicial rights. With that said, let me go to a clip, a very important clip I want to play of Attorney at Law, Mr. Bradley, so the people at home and abroad can listen to this clip.
And founded in a matter which nowadays the legal experts they call the doctrine of the basic structure, so that nobody can find the words separation of powers in the Constitution. Separation of powers is so crucial. The executive and the legislature, they interlap, they work with one another, but the judicial section of the Constitution and the country is entirely separate from the politicians and the bureaucrats and the ministers and the members of the House and Senate. There is a matter called the independence of the judiciary. And there's another thing called the rule of law. You'll not find those words in the Constitution, but those are the deep embedded principles of the Constitution of Belize, like they are in the Constitution of many democratic countries on the planet. You cannot, nobody can reduce, whittle away, make the Constitution weaker than it currently is. There have been attempts to interfere with the fundamental rights and freedoms in this country, and it didn't get very far. But deep down in the Constitution of Belize, you cannot interfere with the core issues, principles, and protections. And if I didn't say it, let me say it, that the preamble of the Constitution is an integral part of the Constitution. It is a part of the embedded basic structure that the people who brought this country to independence wanted their independent nation to be. So I come this morning to say to you that you can add and improve the preamble, but you can't take out anything that is in there. The preamble, which really should read the preamble of the principles and values and morals and the features and objectives of the people of Belize. You should have those words, Chairman and members of the Commission. The preamble says, whereas the people of Belize affirm, Google affirm that the nation of Belize shall be founded upon principles which acknowledge the supremacy of God. You can't take that out of the Constitution. The long sentence goes on to say that the Belizean people want their nation to be founded upon principles which acknowledge the supremacy of God, acknowledge faith in human rights and the fundamental freedoms, acknowledge the position of the family. The family, that's our weak applause, that's weak. The position of the family in a society of free men and free women and free institutions, and the dignity of the human person and the equal and inalienable rights with which all members of the human family are endowed by God Almighty. In the work I do, I end up bouncing up against some really bad people. It makes me wonder if there's a devil and demons going around. Because we lament how we could sleep with our windows and door open, how you could hang up your clothes and nobody can thief your panty off at the line. You can live and walk about and come from movie late the night and you could feel comfortable and safe. That world is gone. It ain't coming back. Yeah? We're just being sentimental when we talk about it. There are really evil, wicked people in this world who will kick down your door, come in and rape your children and your wife. And some of them have raped the husband too. And they would kill you and slay you like if you are some kind of stray pot liquor. There are people like that in Belize. It's shocking and frightening the way we take life in this small country. We have strayed away from the teachings that have kept us peaceful and safe. So I could go on, but one reason is that when you start to mess around with God, that is what the society will produce, more and more of those type of criminals. And the other reason I have told you already, you can't take God out of the Constitution of Belize. So let me sound like a priest and say, let not your heart be troubled. They can't take God out of the Constitution of Belize. And finally, in the 3 minutes I have given myself to Belize, finally, let me see how to put this. there has never been such a significant situation as what is unfolding right now in this country we love so dear. What is happening? There is an invitation for all of us in the country, in the villages, in the communities, in the towns, in the cities, in the schools for the students, in the church for the congregation. There is an awesome, unprecedented opportunity for the people of Belize, everyone away, to say what kind of country we want to live in now, in this time. That is what the Constitutional Commission is going around to do. It's unfortunate that we hook on to this legal term constitution, because really what it is an opportunity to make Belize better, to say there are things which we don't want to continue in the country.
Now, gentlemen and people at home and abroad, we have sat on this platform virtually. We have had these discussions. And likewise, here is Mr. Bradley, attorney at law, discussing the same issues as we have presented to the people, to say that we do not want nothing taken out of the Constitution. What we do want is it to be strengthened. With that said, let me hear from you, Mr. Wade.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have, like you rightfully says, we have been beating this same thing that this learned man, Mr. Bradley, had said for the past year or more. On more than one platform, we have been saying just what Mr. Bradley had said. Again, personally, I have been living with this constitution all my life, Belize Constitution. Personally, I see nothing wrong with our present constitution. But the manner in which this People's United Party, and with contribution from the past government, because it seems that they have nothing much to say. They know they talk much about this agenda of the People's United Party, right? But like the landed man says, right? See nothing wrong with the constitution, present constitution. And we have said the same thing. What we would like to see is for them to strengthen it, and for them to start to honor and act right and do the right thing, right? This People's United Party government is one of the gross violators of our constitution, right? We see it happen over and over and over. Take away people land, not honoring the courts, passing draconian laws in this country. There are certain things that should be null and void in the Constitution. The amendments that they had made should be null and void. but it's still there. So, in my personal view, that they are the gross violators of our constitution. But this government has a mission, has an agenda, right? Why going down this path? Why tampering with the constitution, right? Now, personally, guys, what I would like to see done, like you say, is to strengthen the constitution, such as making sure that the politician cannot derogate from the constitution, right? That the politician honor and respect the constitution, do right by the constitution, right? That's what I would like. Take away some of the powers. I don't say all the powers, but because these politicians has a hell of a lot of powers in this country. Everything you do has to involve one politician, right? Everything you do could be stopped or wiped off by a politician. And I know they talk no foolishness. If you want one piece of one parcel of land, you got to go through the politician. If you want your kids to attend one good university or get some scholarship, you got to go through a politician. And I could go on and on. They control the daily lives of our Belizean people, right? What I would like to see done, strengthen the constitution in terms of adding that we have elected senators. These people have a hell of a lot of powers, and they are not elected by the people. They have backbenchers who could perform these duties and wipe away these senators. Why paying them when we have backbenchers that are elected by the people just to sit down and do what? Nothing. That's what I would like to see done. Elected elected senators, enshrine that in the Constitution, Mr. Chairman of the Constitution Board, right? Enact UNCAC, enshrine that in the Constitution that this government must enact UNCAC. Why are they afraid for that name, UNCAC? And you hear them that yes, they passing all kind of laws, but unexplained wealth and all kind of thing, but they only want to go back 12 years. No, that's not right. They should go back because you have past politicians who had raped this country, right? Illegally. Unexplained wealth illegally. So why only want to go back 12 years? Why? Because that person has initiated that 12 years there. Don't want them to go back because he might be held accountable, right? So all these things, is so not right. And those are some of the things that I would like to see enshrined in the Constitution because, like I say, these politicians has too much power in this country. Enshrine that in the Constitution, right? And I'll say no more on that. I yield the floor there, Mr. Chairman.
I thank you for your input, Mr. Wade. Mr. Brackett?
Just a second.
And I applaud the landed man, Mr. Bradley.
Some of what Mr. Bradley was saying a little earlier, unfortunately, is not properly stated contextually. In the first instance, when he says that certain words are not found in the Constitution, yes, that is true in certain regards, as far as certain words. for example, the separation of powers doctrine. It's a doctrine that the jurisprudence, top legal minds, researchers, legal researchers, top judges at the highest levels have formulated as part of putting into legal practice or practitioners' way of making the Constitution effective and useful. But all those words do is describe what the Constitution stipulates. Even though those particular words are not in there, it's just like if you say, okay, well, the Constitution requires certain things to be done in the preamble, for example, but then they go on to spell the details of those things that are in the preamble are spelled out in the citations. And there's more words in the part of the citations of the Constitution than there exists in the 3 pages of the preamble, 3 to 4 pages. The whole Constitution comprises of 100 and odd pages. So, for all intents and purposes, I would beg to differ the way Mr. Bradley described the fact that certain words were not in the preamble or even in the Constitution per se, but it's because they are what you call the result of over 1,000 years of jurisprudence, legal practitioners' effort in terms of the English common law, which is where we got our Constitution and our legal system from. So unless you're willing to explain these things to the public, I don't think we should touch that particular statement in trying to say to the public that those words doesn't exist there, because then people would have the tendency or the belief that, okay, well, maybe they don't have this meaning or significance as relates to our Constitution, when in fact, it is the basis of our Constitution. The separation of powers is in our Constitution. Because if you look under the section that speaks to the legislator and how you go about getting a legislator elected and put in place, and when you look under the other part that speaks to the judiciary, section 20 and others, that relates to the laws and how the laws are supposed to be, the legal system is supposed to operate. It's right there in the Constitution as well. When you talk about, for example, the governance of the country, the executive, for example, it's right there in the Constitution. So all these 3 elements are right there sticking out from the Constitution like 3 thumbs. I only have 2, right? I could only show only 2 thumbs what I have. Does that mean that because I only have 2 thumbs, I can't use my hand appropriately? I have additional fingers on my hands that allows me to use my hands more effectively than somebody that only have 2 thumbs. For example, if we only had the judiciary as part of our system, and we only had the legislatures as part of our system, and we didn't have the executive, we wouldn't have a triangle governance system, right? We would have a judiciary and we would have a legislator, but we wouldn't have a management team to run the government. So that's what we are referring to, and what the legal minds refer to when they say the separation of powers. Each of these individual thumbs, as I would call it in my example, have a specific function in our democratic system of governance. We have a legislative body which creates the law or develop the laws. Other than the Constitution itself, by the way, because the Constitution is the law and the supreme law of the land from the time we get independence. And the legislator is empowered to amend the Constitution depending on certain criteria, 2/3, 3/3, 3/4, and there are certain parts beyond which they cannot which Mr. Bradley made reference to, that they cannot arbitrarily and capriciously excise the preamble of the Constitution from the Constitution, because it is the basis that gives the Constitution its mandate and its powers, its legal authority. So if we have, for example, a legislator making laws and a judiciary interpreting those laws, we would still be short of the executive who looks after the execution of those laws, who looks after the management on a day-to-day basis of the governance system. And it is because of these three pillars of our governance system that we have in Belize. We call it the three pillars of powers, and the separation of those powers. Each of those entities have their own jurisdiction and their own powers granted to them under the Constitution that allows them to function, and one cannot tread on the other one or take away the right or the powers of the other. You can't have the legislator decide one day, okay, well, we will abolish the courts, like they attempted to do in a certain kind of way under the past administration of the borough administration, when they tampered with the Constitution and tried to put under Part 2, Section 2, a revised portion that stipulates that they, the legislator, would then become the supreme powers of the land. Basically, what you call a modification of our Constitution to allow the legislator to become supreme, by stipulating that because they made those changes, and they said in those changes that the courts cannot review the legislative laws that are being created, and that the court did not have the right to make any changes, because for all intents and purposes, it is exhaustively stipulated. And then it went on also into Section 69 of the Constitution, and another portion there under Section 69, subsection 9, that said also that they have the authority and the power as the ultimate lawmakers to change the Constitution any which way they want, and that the court cannot tell them that they are unconstitutional in their actions. Basically, they were trying to overthrow the separation of powers. So, because it's a big subject to deal with, I don't think Mr. Bradley should have just glazed over it and just say it's not in the Constitution, when in fact it is, as I just explained to you. Where it is found and how it is found and how it comes about. We also have what you call the let me just read the whole thing for you. Give me a second, please. I have an article that I wrote on this very same issue, and it says like this: on August the 9th of this year, the following comments were made by Leonard Brackett on a Facebook post thread from Channels 5 about Belize Constitution case law ruling. And this is only in one instance. There were other instances. As a matter of fact, when we first started this platform, the first cases that we brought up under the Friday night constitutional and legal matters was about the same issue, about the separation of powers and about the Constitution itself. I titled it, "My Continued Vindication, as I have been telling you so, despite my detractors' dismissiveness, because I'm not a member of the bar. I'm telling them what they're supposed to know, and because they apparently either pretend not to know or maybe don't really know, they want to dismiss what I'm telling them, because I'm not supposed to be in any position to be able to advocate or say anything as regards to those matters. I went on to say, the Supreme Court of Belize, Justice Patricia Fernesi, under judicial review per Section 20, authority of the Belize Constitution, and the Supremacy Clause doctrine, and the Separation of Powers doctrine, and the Basic Structure doctrine, and the Preamble Fundamental Rights doctrine, and the established judicial jurisprudence, which is what I referred to earlier when I said it comes from 1,000 years of jurisprudence under the British legal system. And the established jurisprudence, case laws, stare decisis, etc. I have been saying so for a while now, that the Belize Constitution is being bastardized by the Belize legislature of Belize government, cabinet, and ministers with unconstitutional and ultra-virus acts and overreaching statutory statutory instruments and department procedures, regulations that are contrary and inconsistent with the Belize Constitution and lawful governance powers exercised. In the High Court of Belize, AD 2023, claims number 215 of 2022, between Belize Sugar Industry Limited, BSI, L, and Russell Navarro, and against Attorney General of Belize, Justice Patricia Fernasi ruled Section 10 of the Sugar Act unlawful as being unlawful and unjustifiable in breach of the separation of Section 3D and Section 17 of the Constitution, and is null and void. So they keep making these bogus laws, putting them on the book, and every time those laws hit the Supreme Court for review, they get kicked out and being told that they have been making laws that are unconstitutional. I have been telling them that over and over and over. So it's not that they don't know or they haven't heard. Sometimes when they are making these laws, it's not because they don't understand what they're doing. They're just trying to make the laws arbitrarily and capriciously and hoping to get away with it. There's another little piece I just want to read here, Mr. Chairman, if you permit me quickly. The basic structure doctrine holds that the fundamental principles of the preamble of the Constitution of Belize have to be preserved for all times to come and cannot be amended out of existence. That comes from a case, the Boeing case, that went to the Supreme Court. They also went to the High Court of Appeal in Belize, and it went to the Caribbean Court of Justice. So for all intents and purposes, that particular part of the law is called stare decisis, settled law, meaning that it had been dealt with at all three levels of our constitutional courts and have been found to be approved as far as the courts are concerned. I just want to read this little piece here. That one of the judges, I think it was Judge Legal, that dealt with this matter at the time. As I see it, said the learned judge, fundamental rights in a constitution are inherent and cannot be extinguished by constitutional or statutory provisions, and any law that abrogates or extinguishes such rights would be violative of the basic structure doctrine. So over and over, as a matter of fact, we have dealt with these matters on this particular platform, and before this, but on this particular platform, we can go back and look at all the different shows that we have done. Every Friday night, we deal with some legal matters that relates to the Constitution and our governance of the country. And sometimes we deal with those matters on other nights besides Friday, as, for example, tonight and many other nights. So it's not that these people have not been hearing us mentioning these things, and it's not because they don't have their own ability to go and do their own research and review. They're just called flaws. So I'll just turn it back over, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for allowing me.
I thank you for your input, Mr. Brackett.
You're welcome, sir.
As Mr. Bradley was saying, he wants the Constitution to be strengthened and nothing should be taken out. I have said it before, and one of these shows, it took the Bahamas 8 years to redo their constitution, and they still have not rewritten it totally. But what they did do was strengthen it for the people. With that said, let me go to a clip so we can hear what the opposition leader had said.
Long overdue. It is my hope that this people's constitution will discharge its mandate efficiently, and that the goal is to protect rights and to expand rights. So I hope that we don't find ourselves in a position where rights are being taken away. And I am satisfied, cautiously, that the committee will follow through in ensuring that there is as much inclusion as practical. I know there was an issue with the Creole Council, and we...
Gentlemen and people at home and abroad, you heard the leader of the opposition, who is also having a concern about rights being taken away and not the strengthening of the Constitution. And it is not only the leader of the opposition that have these concerns. We want you, the people at home and abroad, to understand. We have senators in there. We have the church senator that is representing this nation and is doing nothing about it. That is totally ludicrous because they are making things get by them. Look at what happened to Good Friday, the selling of alcohol. Look at what happened over the past celebration. It was celebrated on a Sunday that should be a worship day. But to prove this, let's go to this clip.
Blesses and protects persons who act justly. Now, this principle applies not only at the personal level, but it also applies at the national level. For example, the nation of Belize is undergoing a constitutional review process with the intention of amending or rewriting our constitution. Now, the preamble of the Belize Constitution asserts that, and I quote, "The nation of Belize shall be founded upon principles which acknowledge the supremacy of God." End of quote. Wow, that's beautiful. Beautiful. At the end of Mass, we will give you a free brochure for you to take home and read and share with others, with a summary of the principles that flow from the supremacy of God. And yet today, there are forces in Belize trying to take God out of the Constitution and make Belize a godless and an amoral nation. That would certainly guarantee God's protection would be removed. But thank God, the founding fathers of Belize intended this nation to be built upon principles which acknowledge the supremacy of of God. Not the supremacy of the British Crown, not the supremacy of the Parliament, not the supremacy of the dollar, not the supremacy of the military. No, Belize was founded upon the supremacy of God. This is why Belize has been protected by God for 42 years since its independence. Yet I have noticed that our independence...
Gentlemen and people at home and abroad, you have heard Mr. Bradley. You have heard the leader of the opposition, and you have heard this pastor. I have stated before that since 1981, our fundamental rights have been enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution, and it cannot be written out of existence. Now you have heard two parties mention the same thing. And when this constitution reform came about, the first thing I said, the present government have a super majority to create any laws. If they want to do constitution reform, they should start by moving section 1 and 2 over and then creating whatever laws they wanted. Mr. Wade, I go to you first.
Oh, this situation, right? Like I said before, we have, talked about it in previous shows, and and where we stand. And my thing is that, how is it, right? How is it that you hear that pastor, right, says that it's the intention. That's what he says, of tampering with the Constitution, and it seems that they want to take God out of the Constitution. I would like to know, how did that happen? And I would like to know who initiated that. You heard it from the pastor, you heard it from Mr. Bradley. But I am not hearing it from the chairman. I didn't hear it from the chairman talk about wanting to remove God out of the Constitution. But that's only two persons, the pastor and Mr. Bradley and us on this show, on previous show, right? But, I asked the question. I don't know who can answer it. How did that item initiated? And who initiated want to take God out of the Belize Constitution? Right? You see, there are evil forces behind this. But like the pastor says, Belize is a God-fearing country. And that is not going to happen. That is not going to happen. So that's not my concern anymore, because I know it's not going to happen. My concern is that, and it's only me who quote me, the agenda of the People's United Party and the Belizean administration want to take Belize into a republic. And before doing that, all kinds of little things behind the scenery and to get to that, what they want to do. And that is exactly their agenda. That is exactly what they're doing. Right? And that's only me. So, hold me accountable for what I said. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank you for your input, Mr. Wade, and rightfully so, because I have asked that question on a platform. The question was, Do anyone believe the present government is trying to achieve the agenda of the late Right Honorable Judge Cadel Price? Nobody wants to answer it. I
I
had to
remember that.
answer it for them. Turn Belize into a republic, because that was his intention from 1981, to have Belize as a defenseless papa. Mr. Brackett, I go to you now for your input before we change to our next segment. Go ahead, sir.
Your mic, Leonard.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to piggyback on what both of you have been saying. What Mr. Wade just reminded us of just now is that there has always been an agenda long before Belize became independent, and even while we were doing the negotiations for the independence status, the agenda was whether or not we will become an independent country as a republic in Central America, or we will become an independent country as a member of the Commonwealth and exercising a democratic country with parliamentary procedures and processes as a way of governance. A Faustian bargain was struck with Mr. Price because he wanted us to become an independent country as a Central American republic. And he could not get the independence granted to him unless the whole country would go into independence united. And therefore, he had to accede to some of the demands of the then opposition to go ahead and accept the independence under his leadership. But his concession as part of the Faustian bargain with us was to be that we will not become a Central American republic. And that, yes, we'll get independence and he'll become the father of the nation. And he would go down in history as being the leader under who we had the independence. But that if he did not agree to that Faustian bargain, we would not have had independence while he was in power. And he dearly wanted to be the leader and the person who would go down in our history as the one who got the independence, which is why he agreed to that Faustian bargain. And that is why today we are under the Commonwealth in order to avoid a defenseless status. We knew the British wasn't going to stay forever, because that was also part of the Faustian bargain. Mr. Price wanted them out at the point of independence. But we feared the issue of this Guatemalan Democles sword over our head so much that we would not allow ourselves to become an independent defenseless power. And which is why we negotiated and demanded, as we did, and currently still are independent, but that at least we gain 50 plus years of not having been taken over by Guatemala because of the strategic moves that we made. Because Guatemala can only take us over if we have no one to stand up with us in our own defense, because we can't defend country against Guatemala on our own. We don't have the financial means, we don't have the population, we don't have the military equipment, we don't have the military powers. So all the way from the very beginning till now, we always needed to have someone to rally to our defense or to our assistance in case we had a problem with Guatemala. So my take is that even though we achieve these objectives, they're still after this Republican governance issue. We're in Central America. We are part of the Central, the SICA, the Central American Organization. But that is not enough for them. They want to achieve this objective that Mr. Price set out to achieve initially. And even though he's dead and gone, Mr. Briceño wants to become our first president of our Belizean Republic. And that is why he's pushing so hard to try and change our constitution to enable them to eviscerate and disassociate from anything that had to do with British or colonial. Something is disturbing in the background. There's something disturbing in the background.
Put your mic there a little bit. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So for all intents and purposes, it is an incomplete agenda that they're still working at. But at the end of that agenda is what we always speculated, that we had fifth columnists in our country, and we also had a Trojan horse in our country collaborating with each other to get us to become a vassal state of Guatemala, or as they call it, the 23rd district. The first thing Mr. Briceño did when he got elected in this last election and became prime minister was to go over to Guatemala, to genuflect to the Guatemalan president, to hobnob with him, and to go out and drink his drinks and whatever, have his festivity over there with him to celebrate his having taken over Belize, apparently on their behalf. Now, I don't know how come Mr. Briceño thinks that he can do any much better than Mr. Price, who was a mercurial individual with a lot of charisma, well trained by the Jesuit to become a Jesuit priest, and somebody at least who had displayed some kind of a heart, some kind of a humanity. And that was his calling card as compared to Mr. Briceño, who has none of those virtues. I don't understand how he thinks that he's going to be able to do more than Mr. Price did to achieve what Mr. Price could not achieve. Because thank God I'm still around, alive and kicking. I know where the skeletons are, and I can bring them out when the time comes. So I'm sorry for Mr. Briceño and his efforts, but I yield back again, Mr. Chairman.
I thank you for your input, Mr. Brackett. With that said, we go to our halftime.
Let's have a safe and peaceful celebration. Long live Belize!
Welcome back to our second half of Belizean Affairs. In this segment, I would like to go back to two clips that we played not too very long ago. I want you, the Belizean people at home and abroad, to listen to these two clips very carefully because these clips will shed an input about the People's Constitution Reform Commission and what the Prime Minister and the Attorney General had said previously. Let's go to the first clip.
Different laws at play here. And the Referendum Act and the People's Constitution Act. So, as you will appreciate, the People's Constitution Act also speaks to a referendum, and a referendum after the whole consultation process with respect to the Constitution. Again, I don't want to prejudice any particular discussion or that we are having at Oceana, but suffice it to say that there is an interplay. There's a between both the People's Constitution Act and the Referendum Act. There may be difference of opinions as it relates to how the interplay actually operates. If indeed there is an interplay, you take a firm position that, well, there is no interplay. But yeah, but you know, so
Gentlemen, you heard the first clip. Let's go to the second clip.
I don't think it's a matter of willfully ignoring it, but we felt that since we already have the People's Constitutional Commission ongoing right now, that would be the best place to be able to address it through the PCC, since they were asking even for the amendment of the constitutions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Brackett.
Can I jump at the first clip before I forget what it is? Because there's something crazy that's going on in that first clip that needs to be clarified up front. For example, our learned new Attorney General says that they hold the concept that there is some interplay, and then he went on to say, well, there may not be any interplay, but and if there is an interplay, and yes, there's an interplay, but the man is playing with a what you call a bowl of salad words, a bowl of words to make a salad out of.
Mr. Weird, let me hear you on that.
Wait.
We're not finished.
And basically, what he's intending to intimate, what this, I think I could give the gentleman a little leeway if I must be magnanimous. Okay, so I'll try to be magnanimous for a change. Maybe what the gentleman was trying to say is that yes, there's a constitutional requirement for a referendum if they want to change the constitution, which would be correct or appropriate. We have been advocating that from the very beginning of our show. And also, they decided that they should go ahead and follow up on that constitutional requirements if they're going to change the constitution. If, remember that if, God, very tricky. If they're going to change the constitution, and so therefore, instead of them giving Oceana a referendum currently, they would want to snatch Oceana's qualification with their 22,000 signatures, which should have triggered their referendum. They want to defer that and hopefully be able to use that for their referendum that they need to have if, as I said, based on the rules that they put into the People's Constitutional Commission Act, that only if the legislator think it is substantive enough, then they will go ahead and have a referendum. all those kind of qualifiers and all kind of shenanigans does not speak to the truth of the fact that a referendum is required if they want to change the constitution to the extent that they have decided that they wanted to change it, and if they want to derogate or take away or modify any of our current basic civil rights, constitutional rights, or inalienable rights, which according to them are not fundamental. Because Mr. Usher keeps teaching that craziness that of fundamental rights. He used the word fundamental and goes on into saying that they can be abrogated or abridged. And instead of teaching the strength of our fundamental rights, he teaches the weaknesses of our fundamental rights, which are not fundamental as far as he's teaching. Therefore, the two young ladies them in the last presentation that they had was advocating the same thing as he's teaching out there, which is contrary to the Constitution. And he, as a supposed learned person, should not be teaching that kind of craziness to people as part of the Constitution education campaign. Because he's totally off his walkers when it comes to that particular point. But I'll defer. As regards to the one with the Prime Minister, all he's doing is lying. He doesn't really know what he's talking about in the first place, but he's lying to try and cover up them trying to deprive Oceania of their constitutional rights. He's saying that if the PCC wasn't in place, he would have then followed the law. So now he chooses to be a scofflaw and not follow the law because he put a PCC in place. That's what he wants us out here to believe. That he has derogated his responsibility and put the PCC in place and turn over the governance powers of the country to whatever comes out of the PCC, which means that he should stay home. He shouldn't go to cabinet and try come to the house to try and make additional law. Wait till the PCC finish and all those additional laws should come through the PCC. That's what he's intimating. But he's doing that to people who don't know better and don't question further. And he's taking us all for a bunch of fools. I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wade, the question is the People's Constitution Act binding legally when the Attorney General and the Prime Minister spoke about it having a referendum act? Let me hear you on that.
No, thank you. They want to cause confusion, fuzzle the people's mind. Like I say before, these guys, their agenda, right? You see the way, the things that they're doing, the laws that they're passing, and all of a sudden, the People's Constitution Committee out there, who is supposed to be out there educating the people, right? They got so much power now, The Prime Minister give them so much power. But yet, they're taking conflicting messages, right? I will not say more on that. You just listen to their town hall meeting that they started out with and where they at now. Check the different messages that they are taking, right? Then you hear the teachers of these, some of them says, well, landed man, say, you have right and you don't have right, right? Now, come on, their agenda now and their mission, right? They can swerve from that. And as to the newly appointed Mr. What's his name?
Attorney General?
Attorney General. right? He has to
Toe the line.
sing the tune of his party, right? And my people, that whole scenario there is trying to show you, and try to show you the intention of these people and how they do their thing, forget what they want. Now, take this now. 200,000 signatures. Null and void. Not gonna no say what that to tell you. And so one kick the ball down the road with 200,000 plus signature. Does he care? Hell no, he no care. Because he may get what he want. If he had honored that and didn't find a way how to bamboozle those signatures, bad things would have happened in this nation, right? If you would have honored that, those signatures, right? So he threw everybody under the bus who signed that petition, right? And you never hear about that again. You never. That water under the bridge. So, long story short, right? This government has an agenda. And nothing there comes between them to achieve that agenda. So I say that, my Belizean people, we have a rude awakening within the next 6 to 8 months. You will see the true People's United Party that we all have elected to serve and protect this country and its people. Say no more. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wade, I thank you for your input. Let me say this to the people at home and abroad. The People's Constitution Act is non-binding. There's only one present constitution, and there's only one present referendum act. So when the Attorney General and the Prime Minister said what they said, they spoke out of context, and I will prove it. 2 shows ago, we heard the chairman of the People's Constitution Reform Commission said what their mission was, to go out there, to meet people, to get input from them to take back, and then they will come back and ask the people as to what they want to take out and what they want to put in. As I said before, what the people should be saying is, we don't want to take out nothing. We want to strengthen our constitution as the Bahamas, who took 8 years, had done for their people. But I will play a clip that will prove exactly what I'm saying, because in all honesty, the power of constitution reform lies in the people of Belize, and I will prove it right now.
And also, I know that there are a lot of different different groups that wanted to be in the commission, but we've already been at what, 25 members, and if we continue taking more and more, it's going to be unwieldy. We'll not be able to do anything. Actually, I'd have wanted to cut down the numbers on the commission. You see, because it's important to point out that the commission is not going to decide what is going to be approved. They are just going to be the vessel for the process. They are going to be out there listening to the recommendations from different people. I want to assure everyone that you all have access to speak to the committee. You can put in writing your proposals, or can go and talk to the committee. At the end of the period, we hope that with 1 year, that we want them to be able to finish the consultations, and probably another 3 or 6 months at most to put their recommendations together. That has to go to a referendum. So it's not a matter of whatever they decide, or we from the government will decide what is going to be approved, the changes. It will go to referendum, and at the end of the day, it is the Belizean people that will have the final say.
Gentlemen and people at home
Outright
and
liar.
abroad, did the Prime Minister just err and himself? Did he just spoken out of context, or
No.
is he now telling the truth? Mr. Wade, I go to you first.
First of all, guys, personally, I don't believe nothing that comes out of that man's mouth. Right? That's me. Right? Could do me anything, say anything about me. Right? That's the way I feel. So why is it that there's so many conflicting messages out there? Right? Why is it? Well, this man, he has a super majority, right? Why don't he just not do what he want to do and done with it? But you know what he says? It has to go to a referendum, right? That's what he says. Has to go to a referendum. So I will not elaborate about the 2,000 plus signature that I just talked about, that he didn't want that to go to a referendum, which is the people's right for them to have taken that to a referendum, right? Now here he says, yes, we have to go to a referendum if we want to interfere with the Constitution, right? So I personally don't believe nothing that man says, nor his followers, his minions, because they are all one. They all sat and talk about that whole thing, what they want to do on their agenda. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt, right? And see what happens if he's going to put it to a referendum.
Mr. Wade, I thank you. What the Prime Minister just said in that video is, when he and the Attorney General said there was a referendum in the People's Constitution Act, they had spoken out of context, because it is non-binding until there's a referendum and it goes through the House and goes to the Governor General to get assented. So I wanted the people at home and abroad to hear the video, to know that what they say, as I said before, they are always telling on themselves and talking out of context. Mr. Brackett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Prime Minister has gotten himself into a cycle of just lying. And somehow, I believe he has the impression that the lies he's telling, people are just following them. And therefore, he just keeps it up. More lies on top of more lies on top of more lies. And apparently that is good enough for us out here who are hearing him stipulate the things that he stipulated that doesn't square with things that he had stipulated before, or that he turns. Let me be specific. Let me just hit the point and done. Get it over with. What he said just now in that clip doesn't square with what they started saying in the beginning of their effort. And what he said on that clip, compared to what they had said at the beginning of their effort, doesn't square with the PCC legislation, in which it is stated that if the legislators decided that it is substantive enough, the report that is produced to them by the PCC, then they will authorize a referendum, after which they will have to, by the way, get permission from the Governor General. They will have to issue a writ of referenda, which would then trigger the referendum legally. But before getting there, they have been dodging having to do a referendum for so long, and they keep twisting and turning and making themselves into all kind of shapes, not even pretzels, sometimes probably worse than pretzels, to deny the public of its constitutionally mandated right to have a plebiscite on these significant matters that has to do with the derogation of our civil or basic rights, or any other matters that comes under Section 2.
That's why I
1
said
and
they are
2.
the gross violators. Gross violators.
Yes, sir. And so what they do now is, after they dismiss this PCC group, when they turn over the report to the Prime Minister, whenever they finish with it, the Prime Minister will take it to Cabinet, discuss it, and before presenting it to the House, they'll have to use some draftsmen or draftspeople to put it into legal structure. Then they take it to the House to be voted on by the House. Why can't they take that same matter that they're going to take to the House to be voted on by the House before the House votes on it, and let the people have their say, which is the right or proper procedure? The House should not pass into law and create any constitutional crisis in the country to take away people's constitutional rights without coming to the public for a plebiscite. Because only the public have the power and the authority to grant the government the privilege to exercise those rights on the public's behalf. The government is forbidden from exercising powers that are under the vestige and edict of the public and the Governor General. The House itself is not the ultimate power of ascension of powers in the country. That authority is vested in the Governor General. And the House the House only sits by virtue of the granting of that authority by the plebiscite. And there are certain things in the Constitution that are left under the powers of the plebiscite, for which the Constitution says shall, not may or could or would, or if they want to, as they are putting into this stupid legislation that they wrote the other day and presuming and telling the public that, oh, that legislation is in play and therefore that trumps the government's powers and authority. Because the Constitution, for all intents and purposes, is defunct or is being set aside, and therefore they can't act under the present Constitution because they are hoping to wait until the new Constitution comes before they can actually act, which is what the Prime Minister is telling the public with that last clipping that you played. When the gentleman telling that it violates the Constitution, he said, no, they're not violating the Constitution, but yes, they are violating it because you can't have it both ways. Either they violate it or you know they violate it. And if you're not violating it, you can't come with no because to justify why you're actually violating it. Anybody understand what the child said? What they say too fast? What they say too, you know, at the Halampo and what they say something what are talking in a different language than where people could comprehend or understand? Where they say? I'm
Mr. Brackett,
wait. I'm sure that all people can understand exactly what I'm saying as much as they could understand what the Prime Minister is saying. The difference is that one person is bamboozling you, lying to you outrightly over and over and over, and I'm trying to clear up the lies that he's telling. So if you want to fault me for pointing out that he's a liar and a habitual liar, a chronic liar, then you could get back to me. But I would prefer to get back to the man for being a liar and hope that we'll get him to change it and make it believe and understand that we don't believe the lies, we don't run with the lies. Because as of right now, my impression is that he thinks that he's getting ahead of the game by lying and keep on the cycle of lies on top of lies on top of lies. It shouldn't have to be. Not in that position as Prime Minister of the country. I give it back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brackett, I thank you for your input.
You're
but
welcome.
we are here right where we started, as was mentioned by us on this platform. What was mentioned was they either go to a plebiscite to see if the people want to change it, or they are at bar to amend it because of the basic structure, which is hindrance to them. But to let the people hear it, not from you, I will let them hear it from one of the teachers, what he has to say.
He's a trained draftsman, so he worked to write law, and so he was also a magistrate. So Attorney at Law Ed Usher is who we are going to hear from now.
The Supremacy Clause is what holds the second branch of government, the legislature, in its place. The Supremacy Clause says, and I will paraphrase, that the Constitution shall be the supreme law of Belize, and any other law that is inconsistent with the Constitution shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. Again, because this is very important.
No,
is the People's Constitution Act inconsistent with the present Constitution? The answer is yes. Section 5, number 22. People at home and abroad, kindly read it for yourself.
You have it available?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't have it.
We're down to 1 minute, you know.
Right. So
we might let's take another couple minutes. Let's take another couple minutes, not too far beyond another couple minutes, please.
Sure, we can do that. Do you have it available?
No, that's why I was asking if you had it. Comment or finish your comment. I'll try and grab it.
As I was saying, Section 5 of the People's Constitution Act, number 22, is inconsistent with the present Constitution and is null and void. The Governor General cannot assign power on to the present government to let them decide if they want to have a referendum or not. National security falls under the people. Period. It is up to the people to hold a referendum under national security under Guatemala, and if their fundamental rights is being violated. Mr. Wade, before Mr. Brackett find that.
I think he
22.
Let him go ahead.
Part 5, Section 22. The Prime Minister shall within, is that the part you want me to read or just 22 itself?
Just
Right?
22 itself, sir.
Okay. Referendum 22. Gotta enlarge it. Just give me a second. Okay, I made it too big now. Okay, there it is. A referendum shall be conducted where the National Assembly passes a resolution declaring that the matter stated in the report, whether the Belize Constitution should be repealed and replaced or amended, is of sufficient national importance that it should be submitted to the electors for their view through a referendum. So for all intents and purposes, this is still conditional. The Prime Minister got up there just now in that clip that you played and was stipulating that, oh yes, we will have a referendum. When before, in the beginning, they never want to have a referendum. And we kept on telling them that they have to have a referendum. They're empowered to make the changes that they need to make, but they don't want to make the changes where they need to make. They want to make changes where they know, but they can't make. So then they solicit the general public's assistance as sovereign citizens, as you always say, Greg, to overthrow the present head of state so that they could inherit the powers of the head of state and become or one local head of state, whatever.
They cannot.
Well, but that's what
The
they're
GG, the GG should not assented powers onto them.
I don't
they
think
do not.
Greg,
they do not have the power
I
to
do not
say
think
if there should be a referendum
I
or
do not
not.
think that the Governor General knew or understood her assignment as regards to signing off and giving the powers or authority, ascensions of authority to that particular PCC. Because in that particular PCC, the attempt and the effort is to try and overthrow her boss. And she should not be conceding or acceding to any such thing. But she don't have a legal staff to help her.
The attempt right there is to get rid of the present referendum act, just as the past government tried to do.
Yeah.
That's what they are trying to do, along with Section 20.
But
with
we will
that said, gentlemen,
we will hang that constitution around their neck as an albatross, like I said. This is not like before. They are trying to relate to the old days. Then better get the sense and start relate to the present days if they want to get to a future where they actually try reach, because they can't reach there without coming here or going through here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With it behind the time.
Good night to the people at home and abroad. Thank you for tuning in to this or 65th edition. With that said, we wish you all a good night.